You
Cool.
get that?
Yes, got it. Yeah.
Excellent. Right. Okay, perfect. Right. Well, welcome to Ground Investigation Podcast, episode 3. I'll be your host, Michael Taylor. And today we have on Sam Setchell from Jackson Geo Services. How are you doing, Sam?
Very good, thank you. Very good.
Yeah. How's life treating you?
Not bad, not bad. I'm rocking a bit of a dirty tash at the moment after an emergency trip to a hazmat site where I needed to be face fitted.
Yeah.
So getting used to the new look.
But you have more of a bit more growth then, do you?
It was definitely a bit more beard when I arrived on site on Monday morning. But
I don't like
the
it.
joys of the industry.
If I have a proper shave, I feel naked. Something's gone wrong, I think.
Exactly.
My face doesn't look correct. When you can see it all, doesn't look correct. And that's the truth of it. So could you give us a little bit of background on yourself, sort of where you work, the role you do, etc.?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a senior engineering geologist at Jackson Geo Services, which is the Geo Services division of Jackson Drilling Group. It's something that I was involved in setting up about a year and a half ago. Okay. And since that point, we've kind of gone from strength to strength and got a pretty serious senior team in place to start delivering ground investigations completely in-house, which is great in a kind of 18-month period. And probably ahead of where we thought we were going to be. But it's great. It's kind of the world of startups in ground investigation. Yeah.
It can be a tricky
living on the edge.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
It was actually going to be the next question. So I think you started. So you went from Jackson Drilling to Jackson Geo Services in August 2020. So that's basically more of an engineering focus, is it? Can you sort of tell me about that and what's prompted the decision to deviate from the drilling specifically to provide engineering?
So I joined Jackson Drilling as it was from a engineering geologist background and role, working in kind of geo-environmental ground investigation. And when Jackson Drilling approached me, they were very keen to set up a engineering capability to support their drilling, as well as deliver the kind of the wider scope of the jobs and start bringing work in through a different route rather than always having to work as a drilling subcontractor. From the start, we always knew it needed to have a different name and a different label. But it took the kind of first 6 months to get established, and then bringing in Dan and Adam as the kind of senior management team to get to the point where we had to kind of put a logo on it and say, look, this is a separate division, and from that point, that's how we run it essentially. Although I sit in the same office as the drilling team, I'm upstairs in my little cubby, and they're downstairs doing their thing.
Okay, that's quite good then, isn't it? To be so close to one another. I suppose the services can can liaise with one another a bit easier. That's sort of
exactly. So that we do work where a client needs a drill rig and needs an engineer, so we can provide an engineer in that regard. And at the same time, as Geo Services, we're out winning work in the kind of contract and consultancy geo-environmental model that we can then use our drilling capabilities to deliver.
Yeah.
And it's great having that in-house drilling expertise, it's so often the most challenging part of jobs, getting the right kit on site at the right time with the right people operating it. So we've been really lucky in that regard, lucky.
Yeah, and I suppose the drillers, so it's not a case of people turning up. It's a case of the person you've worked with, which sort of can always help. So it differs in, so because you provide engineers, you sort of bid for work. Do you do sort of the consultancy side as well? Do you do interpretive reports, etc., or just factual?
Yeah. So when we set up, we realized that we had to get, our kind of boots on the ground, set up the company, and the majority of what we were looking at doing was purely factual. And then over that, kind of organically getting asked more and more to do more interpretive work. My background is in that side of things. So we've developed that capability to kind of provide geo-environmental phase 1, phase 2 type stuff, as well as kind of basic geotechnical interpretation. And then, as a small company, we've made connections with, more senior engineering people who we can bring in specialist roles, rather than, trying to cover every single base on an interpretive report. It's much better to bring in a slope stability specialist, for example, where we've got some slope stability questions to answer.
Yeah,
because you just, it's a great model to operate under. It's so dynamic, and you don't have to be an expert in everything, and no one should be an expert in everything.
So you can essentially bolt on the expertise.
Exactly, as and when, and we're a small company, we've got low overheads, so we don't have to keep every element of the consultancy side of things in house.
Yeah. Okay. So how many sort of engineers do you have at the moment? What's the size of Geo Services?
So we've got the three of us in the kind of the management roles. So Dan, Adam, and myself, and then I kind of operate on site as well. And then with site engineers, we've got 3 site engineers and a junior in training as well. So it's not a huge team, but it's quite experienced. We're putting senior engineers on jobs that maybe others wouldn't. And because of that, we're also able to pick up some of the more challenging ground investigations. And I think when you start at the bottom, particularly in the contracting world, the stuff you win is the stuff that maybe other people didn't want to do. So with that team and with that drilling expertise, we're able to deliver jobs where we're hanging off the side of cliffs in Wales and, working on really tricky sites that, get you in the door and on that bottom rung of the ladder, I guess, isn't it? And you've got to work your way up from there, prove yourself. And if you're small and you've got lots of experience and specialist people, you're perfectly placed to deliver those jobs.
Yeah, you are. And as you say, so if you can take in expert services as and when, you can also use contractors as and when. So exactly. Yeah, if you time it right, you can, get enough people in to not have to say no, which is never good, is it, in a business? If you have to say no, you don't have the resources.
Exactly. We're aware of what our scale of operation is, and that's dictated by what we've got in house, as well as levels of insurance and things like that. You've got to find your operating level and pitch yourself right, haven't you? And by doing that, what you deliver is going to be of the highest possible standard. Rather than just churn.
So whereabouts do you pitch yourself? Do you pitch yourself with sort of a premium delivery, or sort of
no. So it's almost like boutique is a really bougie way of explaining it, but do you know what I mean? It's there's a level of work that needs experience and quality that we can deliver. So if we aim at that kind of work and we keep winning that kind of work, we're very happy. And at the same time, the other stuff comes. You get the slightly more straightforward ground investigations, the phase 1 and 2 work. And from that point of view, we've got the perfect setup to deliver those jobs. So we keep rocking and rolling. while we're doing that, we're trying to develop how we do those things in a kind of different way that as a team of 8 we can do, that we can roll out, week by week, whereas in a large consultancy that would be a very lengthy process. So for example, we've invested fully in the kind of cloud logging systems. All our data now on site is collected digitally on tablets, goes straight into the cloud from site, and is available instantaneously to the guys in the office, which, because of our scale, is an investment we can make. But at the same time, we've got the guys like Adam Putt has essentially devoted at least 6 months to building a reporting system in open ground that I think is industry leading in terms of what we get out of the data we put in for our clients.
Yeah.
And it's instantaneous. If you put the work in at the right time, what you get out is of such a high quality and of so much use to people that we're not entering data into 5 different spreadsheets and lab schedules, and you know what it's like. It's such a time drain.
It'd be incredibly sort of frustrating doing that. And like I say, putting in the graph for the 6 months, I know it feels like you're not getting anywhere, but actually out the end of it, now you can sort of overtake essentially and get it all down on paper without having to go through the turmoil every single time, because it is frustrating.
Exactly. And with a small team, you can make changes and say, guys, I've made a change, let's roll it out. Let's improve it week by week. And when one engineer on site finds something they would like to do, it can be done like that. And we'll get to a point, we're at a point where we're using it on every site now. In a month's time, we'll be, completely bought in, all the drilling as well. Everything will just stay digital, and we just get the data turned around so much quicker. Having done it every which way, from paper logs on site, typing them into Wholebase, or typing your lab schedules up, to have that just there when you get back to the office or back to the hotel in the evening, is a godsend. And we're at a point now where we can kind of scale that system, which is great. And it's fun to do. It's fun to be involved with.
It's fun to be involved with because it's at sort of early stages. Is that why?
Exactly. And it's, I'm 100% sure many consultancies are doing similar things across the country to get to that point, but we can do it quickly and send all the guys out next week with a different bit of kit, and we can make it work.
Okay.
Which is fantastic.
Is there a sort of plan to package this up and sell it to others sort of further down the line? Do you think? No, just
no,
internal?
It's taking the off-the-shelf product and making it work for what we do in the industry, and what will be useful for tier 1 contractors is going to be very different to what's useful for us providing data up the chain. So it works for us, and we'd rather just use it to deliver the highest quality product to our clients, and do things a bit differently, which is great. It's a really nice opportunity to have kind of a team that are bought into doing things differently. There's no history of this is how we do things, or
that's it. It's fresh. You kind of make it up, and if you're a small team, then you can be agile and you can chop things off straight away. It doesn't have to go through a long process, like you say. So, could you tell us a little bit about your sort of day-to-day life there at sort of Jackson Geo Services? What's your typical day? Do you have a typical day?
I live in what I consider to be the perfect role of between site and office. So I will be getting involved in the setup of the jobs in a kind of project management capacity, and at the same time having boots on the ground with those projects, getting the engineering team set up, making sure they've got everything they need and the support they need. So it's very dynamic, moving around a lot, but at the same time, I'm writing the interpretive reports and working with Adam and Dan to get that side of the business working, getting the reporting out on time, getting the quality of the reporting up, and supporting the guys on site. But that balance is really nice to me. So I'm based at our office in Glastonbury, but I'm probably only here 2 or 3 days a week max at the moment. And then there's going to be some jobs where I'm on site for the whole job, which is fantastic. But then it does mean, you can kind of helicopter into jobs a little bit if you're not stuck on one job, and where teams need a bit more extra support or things aren't quite how we were expecting. I can jump into those positions quite nicely. So there isn't really a typical day.
No. But no, there never really is, especially if you're, well, I suppose it's quite early. If you're out on site and you're in the office, then it's a good split. Most people want a split similar to that. When people are out on site all the time, they become a bit disenfranchised, don't they? And I think it can be the same if you're trapped in an office all day. There's definitely better things to come out of a decent mix, I think. So how did you sort of get into ground investigations in general, Sam?
So I actually did physical geography at undergraduate level.
Yes, I noticed that.
The classic route.
Yes.
It was physical geography with a lot of geology. But at Southampton, there was kind of like 3 people that split the degree, and I just said I'll just take the units and take the geography degree, and it was great. And I was always interested in the kind of sediment side of geography. And then I realized that I wasn't ready to go and get a proper job, so I did a master's back when you could get funding to do masters. So I got a NERC studentship to do a master's at Royal Holloway, which was in quaternary science. So it's essentially it's not engineering geology. It's shallow geology.
Okay, so superficial type stuff.
Yeah. So last 2.6 million years, everything to do with ice, how ice is infected the environment, essentially. But that course is really wide ranging, so it covers a lot of kind of climate reconstruction work, which is obviously throughout the quaternary. That covers polar ice cap stuff, quaternary mammals, pollen, diatoms, all these kind of things. And I got really into the really geeky sediment side of things, and particularly glacial sediments. And decided that I was going to do a PhD in that. Had a PhD pretty much lined up with the British Antarctic Survey, looking at some offshore sediments. I thought it was all good. I thought I've got 6 months. I'll go off to Australia, go and have a bit of fun in Australia before the PhD interview, in case it doesn't work out. And then that's probably the most likely place to be able to get a job. I'll do like exploration geology or something. It'll be great. End up.
I think that
was not quite working out like that.
No, I was going to say that was kind of the dream for most people. If I remember everyone on the geology degree, it seemed like the most interesting thing was to do the exploration geology. Exploration.
It's
be with a small team in a remote location on the back of a helicopter.
That's it. Just kind of like picking gold out of the ground.
It sounds great.
Sort of...
But then we ended up in ground investigations somehow.
It's almost as if I got to Australia and the mineral prices dropped, I think, as I landed in Perth, and exploration geology ceased to exist as a kind of I mean, they were employing people out of second year and stuff in British universities and flying them over.
Wow.
I got there, that didn't exist as a role, unless you had experience in it, or whatever. Ended up working in a bar for a bit, and then met a kind of crazy local entrepreneur who was kind of riding the iron ore mining boom, which was still kind of happening. So the kind of mineral stuff had kind of slowed down, and then the iron ore extraction side of things was still full bore, and got involved in doing infrastructure for mine sites. So remote infrastructure, earthworks essentially, and ground improvement. And the bit that I got involved with was the kind of testing and validation of that ground improvement. And that became ground investigation essentially. So we had a engineering consultancy business, but we also owned a ground improvement contractor. So we were doing ground investigations and designing ground improvement methods to suit remote environments. But we were a small specialist team, and we would do anything. Like,
so you say to sort of design it for remote locations.
Yeah.
What did you change to design it for a remote location?
So drilling in Australia is like crazy expensive compared to what we look at here from a ground investigation world. A lot of the drill rigs in Western Australia particularly are obviously, geared towards exploration, rock coring and things like that. And a lot of the residential areas are built on sand over limestone.
Okay.
So you've got a really variable limestone profile, and sand, which is generally quite dense, and you can essentially, everything's built slab on grade, and you design the thickness of your slab based on how compact the sand is. That's kind of foundation design.
Yeah.
Hereford spread like that. The suburbs have spread like that, and they were at the point now where they were having to infill. So we got involved in that kind of area where they were kind of building in soft ground. We were using a lot of CPTs for ground investigation because they were available. And while that was going on, they were trying to build, hundreds of kilometers of haul roads out in the bush that on those kind of linear developments, even the idea of drilling is just way outside of what the budget is for that whole development. So we did a lot of geophysics. We did a lot of in situ testing, like even as simple as DCPs, plate load test, that kind of thing, to get coverage through the bush. Things that could just be self-sufficient out the back of a 4x4 and generate a lot of data. We invested quite heavily in one particular geophysical technique, multi-channel analysis of surface waves, or MASWA, which kind of gives you a shear strength profile. You essentially tow your geophones behind a vehicle and you do a move, and we'd just do road center lines like that. You go bush, you could go wherever you liked. And that was generating some really interesting data to allow the guys to do their road designs.
Yeah.
And then that kind of all quietened down. And then we realized those techniques were perfectly suited for completely undeveloped areas. So we ended up doing a lot of work in Malaysia, where we had a partner office, a lot of work in West Africa, and then a lot of work in Papua New Guinea as well.
Yes, I see from your LinkedIn profile, sort of the Congo, PNG, Malaysia, Australia.
Yeah.
So how was that? Tell us a little bit about that. Was that for the Infratech group? Is that who you're working for at that point?
Yeah. So that group had offices in Malaysia and a few around Australia, small, but like quite specialist. And we focused on difficult sites essentially, where ground investigation information was required, but traditional drilling techniques were just not available. Like, we couldn't find a drill rig in Papua New Guinea capable of doing a CPT, for example, or SPT test. it just wasn't there. So we had to come up with something different. So we did a lot of geophysics, a lot of non-invasive testing that we could just move out of a 4x4. And it was great. I loved it.
Yeah.
It's living that exploration geology dream in a different way without hanging out of helicopters.
Yeah, definitely is. So how was it working in this sort of different countries then, and so how does it compare to the UK experience?
I've always loved it. I loved working in Africa. I love working in PNG. It was kind of traveling and exploring at the same time as working, which is what I love doing. It's very different in your kind of standardization of ground investigation.
Yeah.
Because you are, as a team, trying to deliver information to feed into a design, the design team and the investigation team are not necessarily worried about working to a particular standard. What they want is some information that they can feed into their design. So as long as there's buy-in from the team all the way along, you're very much working to a performance-based system. You know, you can live in a world of selecting fills and classifying fills, and you're just never going to be able to meet those requirements in your design. So you just have to say, this is what we've got. We want to get it to this.
Yeah.
How can we do that? And then once we've got it there, how can we test it in a way that will work? Because you're just not going to be able to meet a kind of standardized, recognized, even international testing regime. There's been some really great attempts. Like, I know a lot of the DCP software is based on using a DCP for road design in areas of Africa, and that kind of works fantastic. And that kind of was the inspiration, I guess, for a lot of the things we were doing, where you would essentially get an in-country calibration for a certain test of what we wanted to achieve with, say, levels of compaction of fill or performance of certain earthworks, and then just test to those, get local teams involved. And it worked out really nicely. We did a large road project in Papua New Guinea that was essentially a British Army built road, but just kind of bulldozed along a grade as much as possible. And the hillsides are just made of volcanic ash, essentially. Yeah. So they just move constantly, constantly. Like, if you ever want to see examples of rotational failure, you just look at some of their roads, and it's absolutely amazing, absolutely amazing. But yeah, a lot of fun. What you worry a lot more about things like security than maybe health and safety is taken in a very different
does it exist? It's So a lot of the work, so in Papua New Guinea we were working for Australian aid, so we were still working to kind of Australian health and safety standards. But when your risk assessment says, you know, like ambush, this, whatever else, the very negative sides of working in those environments, you know, the pinch points and stuff on the DCP are kind of like, you know, put into context by the armed guard following you around everywhere. So different challenges, but a lot of fun and really rewarding places to work. It does. It sounds adventurous. You get to explore the world, explore different geologies, work with different people as well, because you might be going to the Australian standards, but the people on the ground would have been, you know, would have thought slightly differently. I would imagine.
Exactly.
So I noticed you've got a bit of a specialism in data analytics. Is that right? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah. So a lot of what we did was generating huge amounts of geophysical or in situ data. And part of my role within that group was to report that in useful ways. And quite often that was as a kind of communicative tool,
Okay.
rather than like a ground model essentially, but a ground model with very little other information fed into it. So we would generate geophysical block models based on shear strength or density to try and target the next stage of ground investigation. Because if your drilling rig costs, like 5x, you want the drill holes to be focused on the areas of uncertainty across particularly linear developments where you're talking of hundreds and hundreds of Ks. And that was kind of my role within the group, to take the data we collected in the field, put it all together, put it into 3 dimensions quite often, so we could have those discussions.
Yeah.
And that's kind of stayed really. I think it's the way the industry's going, is we're generating more and more data on site. There's all these fantastic innovations that are generating more and more data.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're a little bit behind on what we do with it and how we use it to communicate what we're finding in the ground. I think we're very good at storing it and putting it into graphs and things like that, but sometimes as a communication tool, we don't get the most out of the data we collect. I think about things in quite a kind of 3-dimensional visual way, and to me, a ground investigation report that is a picture of depth to bedrock, almost like a bathymetry of the site, if that's the question you're asking in the report, is a more useful communication tool than 30 pages of borehole logs that tell you exactly the same information in huge amounts of detail. So that's where I kind of sat within the group, and I've kind of taken that with me through my career. Obviously, when you're kind of doing contract data driven stuff, there's not really the demand for that. But in my kind of previous consultancy role,
can I just ask you to maybe, because I can hear a bit of feedback from, I think it's when you're speaking, so I don't know whether you can just pull out your ear things. I don't know if that'll work. It probably won't, but just in case.
Is that any better like that?
It sounds just going in and out. It might be the internet, it might be your earphones.
Yeah, it's probably the internet.
Yeah, it's never. I don't.
Bit of Glastonbury internet.
Bit of Glastonbury internet. Good at festivals, all for the internet. So.
It's the 5G people.
So I've noticed while I was browsing through your LinkedIn profile that you'll be at the GeoTechnica event this year.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Have you
in the diary?
Have you done any of those before at all, or is this your first one, or have you done many?
I've been to GeoTechnica for the last few years, just kind of dropping in. I went to one.
Are you having a stand this year?
We are having a stand at the I need to get this right, don't I? The Contamination and Geotechnical Expo.
Oh, okay. I haven't been to that.
So I went along last year and I was really impressed.
Really? Which ones do you think's better?
Well, so I think from the ground investigation industry, I think GeoTechnica is a fantastic event. That's a great get together.
Yes.
Of a lot of people. Really good meetup. There's a lot of engineers there. There's a lot of drilling contractors there. There's a lot of kit there. And I think from our drilling division, that's the industry meetup every year. And it's great to see this year that the AGS are kind of providing more technical content alongside that.
Yeah.
So from a kind of professional development point of view, I think that's going to become more important in our kind of engineers calendar. For us, we never quite saw the need for us to have a stand or something there, because we were there meeting our suppliers. Does that make
Suppliers.
sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So we're almost there as a client at
Yes.
GeoTechnica.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's fair
So
enough.
we wanted to look at somewhere where we could be meeting our prospective clients, and I think the Contamination and Geotech Expo kind of provided that better. So I went to that for the first time last year,
Okay.
and I was really impressed at the level of seniority of people who were there attending. From
Really, it's much bigger, is it not?
Much bigger. So the NEC.
Yeah, they have combination. Is it flood? You've got some.
Flood are there, and then there's some kind of energy from waste conference going on outside. So we found that there were a lot of people there from local authorities, from the kind of the public sector probably had a better representation there. At the same time, there were a lot of people there who maybe would be looking to purchase our services as Geo Services.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas I still think the GeoTechnica still serves the kind of the drilling side of things, and we will always be there as hunters, as it were, meeting our suppliers, and there's definitely still a place for that.
I went to the GeoTechnica last year, but I didn't go to the other one. What's it called? The
Contamination and Geotech.
Contamination and Geotech Expo. That's right. We didn't get to that one, which is a shame because I missed out. But hopefully this year, maybe we'll be
worth a look. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we were going to be. We were going to tables. The tables are much more expensive, I believe.
Yeah.
But the footfall is much higher. So it's still it's going to be a worthy investment, I think. So if you could sort of click your fingers and change something in ground investigations overnight, what would it be and why?
I think we need to focus as an industry on getting better representation of people working within the industry. I think we are a very kind of gender and ethnicity undiverse industry. I think we are in the contaminated land side of things. I think there are great improvements being made, but I think we just need to make our ground investigation industry more accessible to more people.
Okay.
And obviously it is tricky from a physical point of view. Though it is a physically demanding job, and there's a limit to how much we can do about that realistically on site. But I think like geology and earth sciences in general are having such a hard time attracting students without the promise of hanging from helicopters and finding gold or finding oil. And
there's a lot of universities at the moment have sort of halted courses as well, sort of geology courses. They seem to be dying off a bit, which is odd because it's, of all the subjects offered, I mean that's why I chose geology. It seems to be one of the most interesting ones. But if it's a case of you compare it to maybe law or something, if earning a good wage is your thing, then it's certainly more attractive. If you're gonna,
exactly. And I think the positive is a lot of universities have realized that what's the point in offering loads of exploration courses if the jobs aren't there? Maybe we should look at geo-environmental engineering and things like that are boom industries in the UK. And I think we'll probably see a better informed graduate, which is great. But there's a lot of boundaries in our industry. There's a lot of early mornings. There's a lot of
there is
expectation to be wherever at the drop of a hat, and that's always going to have its challenges.
Staying away in the hotels
at very little notice as well, to kind of rearrange your life for your responsibilities. But I think as an industry we can really focus on doing the best by our employees and making it as enjoyable place to be working and I think we can kind of counteract the negative sides of the industry by really supporting our staff kind of physically and mentally with their workload, because it is, you know, it's a tricky job, and when everyone goes home from site at 4 o'clock to the pub, the engineer goes back to the hotel and sorts their logs out and does their daily site reports and things like that, and deals with all the questions they got asked during the day.
which can be many. And
exactly, and you know, find out that you're in a different county the next morning. So I think we can do better by the guys in the field, and I think part of that is giving them better tools to reduce their paperwork load and things like that. And I think, you know, better financial reward for the work they do. And I think the upshot of that will be more people interested in the industry, and therefore a more diverse workforce.
Yeah, I suppose it's always historically had the ground investigation, the contract side, all seems to be a low margin game, really. So when you think that some people should certainly be paid more, it's kind of a bit tricky, actually, which brings us over to the next question, which is actually about fuel right now, because I know that red diesel is now, you can't buy it at red diesel prices, you have to buy it at the pump prices. So the pump prices is, I'm not sure exactly what it is at the moment, maybe 175 per litre at the moment.
Yeah, 180 probably, if you're
180
on average sheet.
Yeah. So how's that affecting you guys at Jackson's then? Because that's got to have a...
So the drilling side of things is obviously getting more affected. For us, you know, we're running only our vans, really. So the drilling team have really focused on the security side of things. I think that's the big concern, is, you know, the prices we can deal with changing our prices, you know, or adjusting things, but the security of diesel on site is going to be a big issue, I think. So we've taken the approach of dyeing all of our white diesel green. I think they've gone for this week.
So just pick out a color and see which one.
Pick out a color. It's only gonna fuel our drill rigs. So in terms of MOTs and things like that, it's not an issue. And we can then control its use by others, or it going missing, or finding its way into other people's vehicles.
It does drive temptation for people walking past, especially a sort of, you know, Harris fenced off area, which are not the hardest things to get into. And then there's often padlock, but the more expensive it becomes, the more reward it is for those that do it, I suppose. That's
it. It's exactly, and I think that's going to be a challenge the construction industry are going to have to really.
It's going to be a big
face
challenge.
Up to.
It's going to be a big challenge, that one.
It seems like a bit of a kick in the teeth. And we'd love to be, you know, looking at the kind of eco-friendly options, but there doesn't seem to be the financial incentive to do that. You know, if it was cheaper, we'd love to do it, but it's not. So, but for the meantime,
so there'll be a heavy investment, won't it? Which would only kind of, you know, pay back over years, but initially you have to put that heavy investment in, which is it can be done, but
exactly,
scarier.
Exactly. But it's going to be the challenge for the industry going forward, and whether it's just everyone just ups their prices to cover it, which I'm not sure really what that achieves at the end of the day. You know, when you look at who's paying the big bills in the ground investigation industry, it's kind of all public funded jobs, isn't it? You just end up costing the public pocket more to pay higher road. Seems
it's I suppose it's similar in a way to the R35 for sort of contractors. Those have been forced to work inside, then end up charging more, and it eventually just has a knock-on effect to everyone. So I don't know.
Yes, exactly. And I'm sure somewhere it makes sense to someone, but
yeah,
it just seems like a
not if
very
you're
odd.
yes, if you're a contractor, it does make no sense whatsoever, really, does
No,
it? Have you
no.
ever had a sort of a mentor throughout your career at all, Sam? And if so, could you tell us a little bit about it, please?
I've kind of stuck to people that I've
Yeah,
found in
made
these
them.
various places I've ended up.
Yeah,
So there was a great guy called Sanjeev Narandanathan who came into the Infotech group and kind of took me under his wing from a mine geotech point of view,
yeah,
and taught me a huge amount in a very short time, to the point where he kind of trusted me running those operations from the UK when I ended up moving back to the UK. And then there was a fantastic guy called Marcus Bell at EPS who I work with, who kind of taught me the environmental part of geo-environmental. I essentially came in as a engineering geologist from the bush in Australia into a world of kind of UK phase 1, phase 2 ground investigation and report writing, without any background in kind of human health risk assessment or geo-environmental assessment at all. And he taught me that from scratch, and was always very understanding. And I've kind of just been lucky enough to work with a lot of very clever and very generous people with their time, which I think is a major positive of the UK ground investigation and geo-environmental industry. There are a lot of people willing to share their expertise, and there's groups like the kind of the GISMAIL groups where there's constant discussion about things that in some industries I'm sure would be kept in-house. We do all kind of work together, and obviously there are disagreements across the industry and people taking different approaches, but it does seem quite a nice place to be, I think. At the end of the day, I'm sure there's a lot of industries that are a lot worse.
Yeah, so it probably would have had quite an effect on your career then, so far, to have the sort of the first two mentors that you suggested, because it is quite an important thing, isn't it? If you can have someone to learn from to help shortcut your learning to an extent. Obviously, you still need experience, but yeah, it's an important thing, I think. I know a lot of the larger companies that have a mentoring program, but some of the smaller ones, I suppose it's as and when, I would imagine, really, for the smaller companies.
Exactly, and it's project by project. You're operating in a world where one project can look so unlike the previous one that you have to learn a whole new set of skills, and you've got to find the person within your company, within your company's circle, that you can kind of lean on and get that information from. And I've always enjoyed that way of working and learning. I've never experienced working within a kind of big organization, which I'm sure suits a lot of people, but I've kind of thought maybe it's not best for me, really.
No, I think I'm the same, to be honest, because there's just too many people. You can almost be lost amongst the organization. It's a bit closer usually, in my experience. Do you have any advice for an engineer who's sort of just starting out in ground investigations, or who might be starting out, the end of this year when they leave university?
Read the BOQ. Read. Just read everything to do the project, and try and think how you're going to operate within that project and what role you're going to take. That level of understanding of not just what you're doing, but why you're doing it is such an important step for a young engineer, junior engineer to take, that it makes the decision-making process on site so much smoother. When the problems that people come up against, they're thinking about the why and how, rather than just the kind of route one, what you know.
Yeah.
And particularly when you work in the kind of consultancy side of things, trying to answer the questions that are being asked within that project on site in the best way possible. It's such a great skill to have. And it's very difficult to do without, unfortunately, putting the time in prior to getting on site and reading the information, or ask people, you know, ask the project manager. If they don't know, then, you know, they should probably find out quite quickly.
Fair enough. So is there anything that you would have done differently throughout your career now that you have more experience?
Not really. I don't think. I've
good.
worked with some great people, and I've worked in some great places, and I've not really spent a lot of time doing things I don't want to be doing, which is a great thing to be able to say from a career.
It is, yeah, it is. And it's probably quite an unusual thing to say as well, and you know, because everyone kind of ends up doing something that they don't quite want. But if you've had it,
yeah, sure, sure. There's definitely things that I've preferred to other things, but by finding that out, then I can find the next direction I want to go within that career. You know, like I love geo-environmental side of engineering. I think that kind of consultancy side of things is fantastic and gives you a lot more of the kind of people facing communication side of the industry. But at the same time, I like being on site, and I don't want to get into the kind of highly technical stats based contamination modeling side of things, for example. I see the value in it and everything, but it's maybe not for me. And same on the geotech side of things. You know, I've found that maybe the design side is just not for me, so I can take a slightly different path. But it's great to be able to experience those things, and in different places and with different people doing things. It's a lot of fun.
So I see you have traveled. You've traveled a bit with work, but on your profile, you also say you sort of travel the world with your family a bit as well. Is that right?
Well, not for a few years.
Not for a few years. So it's not something you've already done so far. Then you've not been traveling around.
So we started our family in Australia. So we moved the family back to the UK.
Yes.
And then my wife started a doctorate in London. So we were kind of a bit tethered for a few years, but you know, kind of coming out the other side of the last couple of years, I think we're looking to get out and about again. And it's slightly more restricted by things like school holidays and things at the moment, but for my wife's job as well. But I mean, doing what you guys are doing, I think is fantastic, and it's something I'd love to do one day as well.
Would it be possible?
Get out and
would it be possible?
It's very tricky.
To do it?
Certainly not in my role at the moment.
No, so I was going to say, could you lean on something more digital experience that you've got, perhaps design, that sort of thing? But would not be a thing?
No, and I've always seen work as an opportunity to travel as well, and I've been lucky enough in the past to be able to take my family to various sites and areas where I've been working for more longer periods of time. And I think at the moment that's probably the best way to get out and about around the world again, as things are kind of opening up. It's starting to, you know, the techniques that we develop in the UK are so great, and particularly when we look at the ways that we can deal with this kind of like less drilling focused, more lightweight ground investigation, to take that back around the world and working on some of those aid projects and stuff is so rewarding. I'd love to get back out and do that again, and kind of this time bring the family. It would be wonderful.
You could emigrate and live in various locations.
I've done that. I've moved a family around the world. I'm in no rush to do that again.
So what's next for yourself, sort of personally, and in your career aspirations?
So very much focused on the growth of Geo Services at the moment. So
Okay.
we've got the Glastonbury office, and we've got the office in South Wales, just north of Cardiff, and getting a team together that are able to work to the kind of standards we set, and
Okay.
keep that level of expertise strong throughout the company.
Okay.
Keep developing.
So that's two offices for Jackson's.
Two offices.
Geo Services.
Yeah. So we've got engineers based at both.
Okay.
So Dan and Adam are based in the South Wales office.
Okay.
With an engineer there, and then I've got the other guys here. And both offices, we want to bring more engineers in and develop the team so we can keep delivering to the highest standard, but at the same time kind of push the scale or push the number of jobs we're delivering at any one time. Yeah.
Well, we can definitely help you with any recruitment going forward.
That's it.
Got to get your plug in there.
100%.
Thanks very much, Sam, for coming on the Ground Investigation podcast. It's been a pleasure to have you on. It's been very insightful, and enjoyed your stories throughout. But good luck with Jackson Geo Services. Let's hope it's all you grow from strength, or go from strength to strength.
Thank you very much. It's very kind of you. It's been great fun.
All right, brilliant. All right, thank you very much, Sam, and we'll speak.
Cheers. Thank you.
Sometime. Right.
Yeah.
I will just stop recording this now.